Well, thank you for having me here. And the good thing is I'm not nervous because it looks like you guys are a nice group of people. So, I am the owner and founder of FastCap. I started it about 12 years ago. FastCap is a product development company located right here in Bellingham, Washington. We're an international product development company. We have over 2,000 distributors all over the world that sell our products. We sell millions of dollars worth of products everywhere. If I go to Japan, I can walk into a hardware store and there's our product. If I go to Germany, Switzerland, Finland, South Africa, Russia, it doesn't matter where I go, I'm able to find my products. And that is very gratifying. I am an instrument-rated pilot. I learned how to fly when I started this business because I had to travel so much. I've landed over 400 airports all over the world. I have 3 North Atlantic crossings. But the most amazing thing about this story is that 12 years ago, I was a cabinet maker making $35,000 a year. So the question is, how did I go from that to where I am today? And that's really the essence of what I want to talk about. So, I'm not used to being this confined up here, so I might start moving around. I was born and raised in San Diego, California. My dad was an electrical engineer for General Dynamics and was a president union. He started with the Atlas Missile Project, went on to the F-11, F-111, F-16, Abrams, cruise missile, and right on down the line. Very brilliant man. And I, unfortunately, did not get his gift. I didn't have the intellectual acumen that most people of his caliber would like. And he let me know that occasionally, because I was a little more creative and not as intellectually inclined. I was a C student, actually, in school. But nonetheless, my gifts were in creativity. And I took my first job after graduating from high school at Taylor Guitars, and I worked for Bob Taylor. Some of you might know about Taylor Guitars, some may not. But Bob Taylor produces one of the most incredible musical instruments in the world today. They make over 400 guitars a day. They range in price from $2,000 to $10,000 a piece. I learned from Bob Taylor my art of being an artisan and being a craftsman. And really, the most important thing I learned from Bob Taylor was to be an innovator. Because Bob Taylor, for me, was the first true American innovator. He taught me to think outside the box. And one of the best examples I can give you of that and how I began to be shaped in who I am and what I think was Bob thought how cool it would be to bolt a guitar neck onto a guitar. Well, frankly, you don't bolt guitar necks onto guitars because that's done with a dovetail joint. That's the way an artisan would do it. That's the way a luthier would do it. But Bob knew there was a problem with the way they did that, and that was we couldn't adjust the action very well. We couldn't get that really beautiful playing guitar. And Bob said, you know what, I don't care if the old way is this way, I'm going to find a new way. So he started bolting guitar necks on, and people looked at him like, you can't do that. That's unorthodox. And I watched this whole thing happen because I was part of building the first 2,000 guitars with Bob Taylor. We built them for Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, and all kinds of famous people played those guitars. And what happened was Bob created the ultimate playing guitar. So Bob had a gigantic impact on me in me saying, you know what? I'm not going to listen to the status quo. I'm going to do something different. From there, I went back to college, and I got my degree in education, taught in the public high school, industrial arts, had a great time doing that, and then went on to open a general contracting business down in Southern California, restored some of the most prestigious homes up and down Orange Grove Avenue in Pasadena, if any of you have ever been there. Beautiful homes, green and green, craftsmen, Victorian homes. I was a part of that whole movement that happened back in the 80s where all that restoration occurred. And it was, again, another profound experience in my life to be very creative because that was my gift. And then I decided that I would open up my own business, becoming a general contractor down in Southern California, built custom homes, furniture, cabinets, and a whole bunch of other things. But while I was a teacher, my wife and I would always come up to Bellingham because she's from here. I met her at Biola University, and we'd come up here for the summer times, and it was a great place. And I go, wow, this is the most beautiful place on earth. So I always had that in the back of my mind. Boy, I'd love to live in Bellingham, get out of the rat race of Southern California. So eventually we bought a house up here and rented it out and decided to make the move and come up here. And that was 17 years ago. So I closed my business, very successful. My wife was a teacher, a master's degree. We were doing extremely well. and moved up to Bellingham to start over. Now, Bellingham 17 years ago was not the vibrant city that it is today. I don't know if you remember that. It was a little sleepy, if you will. And business was tough. It was tough opening up a cabinet shop and getting people to pay $10,000 and $20,000 for a kitchen, because that just wasn't the norm. But I managed to eke out a living and do okay. And then Home Base and Home Depot came in. And then I was really in trouble, because now you could walk in and buy a kitchen for $1,500 or $2,000, and I was in trouble. It wasn't that I wasn't offering good value, because I was doing a whole bunch of other things, making the whole kitchen work perfect. It was hard convincing people of that. Then I had an opportunity. A friend of mine worked at the oil refinery, actually about 3 or 4, and I was a little frustrated. You know, it was tough. I couldn't get my business going at the level that it was in California. And I said, you know what, maybe I'm going to give up on this whole thing. And it turned out that there was a job available at the oil refineries, and I applied for that job. And there were 900 people applying for that job. So I went out and applied for it, pretty well qualified, had a rich background in manufacturing. I knew systems, I knew processes, and I had a degree, an educator, so forth and so on. I thought this was a hands down. I was one of 2 people that got the interview out of 900. I went in for the interview. I said, God, this is going to be a slam dunk. How in the world are they not going to choose me? Right? They didn't choose me. So, back to plan B. Well, a month later, a little discouraged, I was in my shop. It was about 8 o'clock at night, and I was doing a very large white melamine closet job for a big client out on the lake. If I said her name, you'd all know who it is. And I was very tired, and the last thing I had to do was cover a bunch of screw holes. See that little screw hole right there? I had to cover a whole bunch of those. And I didn't like to take my cabinets to a job site without these covered, because I didn't think they looked good. These attached to all the scribe moldings, finished end panels. So I had to take this little tiny cap that's in my hand right here, and I had to put it over that thing. The problem is they always fall out. They don't fit in there very well. I have to caulk them on. It's a total pain in the butt. And I sat there and I put my head in my hand on my workbench like this. I said, gosh, somebody's got to come up with a better idea than this. And I said, how come somebody hasn't made a peel and stick cover cap? So I walked into my wife, who was in the office, and I said, Leanne, what do you think of this idea? And she said to me, that's a good idea, Paul. And the interesting thing about that is my wife didn't typically tell me a good idea. Because I'm pretty crazy. I'm always coming up with stuff like this. And she always says, go back to work, pay the bills. Have you seen the bills lately? But this one time she said, yeah, good idea. So I said, what do you think? How can we do this? So I went in, and she had a creative memory stamp. This is the stamp right here. And we took this stamp and a piece of edge banding right here, and I sprayed adhesive on the back side of it. And I stuck it inside this punch, just like that. And I did that. Oh, and now I'm wet. And I punched out the first FastCap out of a Christmas tree. And I took it, and I'm wet now, too. That's about how dramatic a moment it was. Okay?